Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 6 of my C++ video tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to focus in on solving problems, getting better at that because that's the most important thing. So we're going to specifically target and solve 4 C++ problems. Along the way, we're going to work out how to convert strings to vectors, vectors to strings, how to trim whitespace off of strings, how to find substring matches, how to replace multiple substrings, and how to create a Caesar cipher. Like always, all the code is available in the description underneath the video, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so here we are. And the very first thing I want to do, I'm going to demonstrate how to do something, and that is going to be how to convert a string into a vector, and then we're going to have a problem where I'm going to let you work out how to convert a vector into a string. Okay, so I'm going to use functions here for most of the tutorials that continue from this point. Alright, so we are converting a string to a vector, so that means we are going to need to have a vector, and what I'm doing here is creating our function prototype, and I'm just going to call it string to vector, because that makes sense. And it's going to receive a string, and I'll just call this the string. And then it will also receive a character separator, which is going to tell our program what is going to separate each one of the strings. And whenever I create this, I always like to just copy this right here and then come down here, and after this go and actually create our function itself. Now, like always, we're just going to have to figure out what we need to create here. Well, very first thing we're going to return is a vector. So I want to go in here and I want to create that. So there we go, we got this all created, and I'm going to call this vector words, and there we go, that's simple. And after that, what are we going to have to do? Well, I am going to use a string stream object, and I've used these previously, and it's basically it just receives a string and then it will spit out all the individual words based off of what separates those words in the string that we're working with. So I'm going to go standard string stream ss, and I'm going to put inside here the string that was passed in, of course. And now what I can do is I'm going to also going to have a place where I can store these individual strings. So individual string, and then I'm going to continue to cycle through and get strings out of our main string as long as they exist. So I go get line, and then I put the string stream inside of there, and then I'm going to go and get the individual string that I'm going to temporarily hold them in, and then I pass in the separator that is going to separate each of the strings that I want to work with. And then what I can do is I can just come in and push on each of these individual strings into our vector. So push back and s individual string, and there we go. And then we got our function all created. And then after the while loop is done executing, of course, we're going to return our vector that we created. So there we go. So we went and created all of that. So now let's call it up here and test it. So I'm going to, very first off, I'm going to create a vector. And of course, it's going to be the same format as this. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it inside of there. And I'm going to call this one just vec, short for vector. And then I'm going to call string to vector and pass inside of it a string. So I could either put a string inside of there, or I could do something like this is a random string like that. That works perfectly fine as well. So there's that. And then you could also just go and put this down on the next line. It's not going to cause any errors or anything like that. Okay, so we got all that set up. And then what I want to do is just cycle through each index in our vector and print those out. And you know there's numerous different ways to do this. I'm going to use an index in this situation. I is equal to 0 because I like to mix it up and show every different way of doing things. So go and get our vector size, and we're going to continue cycling as long as there are additional vectors inside of there, or additional strings inside of our vector. And then I'm going to go standard and print these all out onto our screen. And then just go and reference with our index, and then throw a new line in after each one of those. And if we run it, you can see we got an error. What was our error? String to vector. Oh, I see what I forgot to do. I forgot to throw in our new line separator. Okay, so save that and run it again. And you can see it went and it grabbed that long string, converted them into a vector, and then printed out each of those individual strings in the vectors on separate lines. All right, so simple stuff there. Now what I want you to do is to pause the video, and what you're going to do is create a program. Well, you know what? Inside of here, I am actually going to do the main program code, and then you have to make the main program code work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say vector, and again, I could have just left that inside of there. Okay, so it's going to be a string vector, and it's going to be a list of customers, and I'm going to say that there are 3 of them, and we're going to have customers, there's that, and this is going to be Bob, and then we're going to get a couple more customers we're going to put inside of here. Okay, so we haven't gotten to the part yet where you're going to actually create the code. You're going to make this work for what I have inside of the main function. All right, so there we go. We got all those set up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a function that is going to return a string, and that function's name is going to be vector2string, and you of course are going to pass in our vector and then a separator. Once again, that's going to be a character, and then what this is going to do is actually print out our string, which is going to be all of our different characters. So customers, and of course this is going to be a space in between each of the characters that's returned with a string right there, and there we are. So it's going to create this vector, and what your program called vector to string is going to do is it's going to receive that vector, convert it into a string in which there is a space between each of the items, and then we're going to be able to print that out. So you can now pause your video and go ahead and create that. Otherwise, I'm going to show you how I'm going to solve it. Alright, so very first thing, we're going to have to define what our function is going to look like. It's going to return a string, of course, and we already said that it's going to be vector2string is going to be the name of the function. And I also said that we're going to be receiving a vector, but how do we do that? Well, we're going to receive a vector, and it's going to be of standard string type, and then we're going to put our reference operator inside of here to pass a vector inside of there. And then we're going to have our separator like we did before. Okay, so there we go. That is how we're going to be able to receive a vector and a character separator and then return a string. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and actually create the function. All right, so what we're going to do is, this is actually pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go and create a string, and I'm going to call it the string equal to, and just make that empty. And then I'm going to cycle through every single item in the vector that was passed inside of it. So vector, and there's each of those individual customers, and then I can just go the string is equal to, and I can do plus and equal to, and then whatever the individual customer is. And then I'm also just going to, on the same line, going to be able to go in and reference the separator to separate them also. Send each stuff, and then I can just go return and the string, and everything works out pretty good. So we can save that and run it, and you can see Bob, Sue, and Tom all print out there. So hopefully you got something similar to that. If you didn't, don't worry about it. The goal here, like always, is just to understand the code and get our brains to think in new and different ways. And now I'm going to show you a way to trim the white space off of our strings. Now, most programming languages have a way of trimming white space off of strings, and by that I just mean getting rid of white space at the beginning or end of a string, but C++ does not. So what we're going to do is, it's a useful tool to have, so we're going to create it. So I'm going to call this trim white space, and it's just going to receive a string, and then of course it's going to return the string without the white space. So pretty simple, and we could save that. And sorry about my voice. I have a cold that I cannot get rid of, and I promised you guys I was going to make these tutorials as quickly as possible, so that's the reason why I have some issues. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the white space characters that I am going to want to erase from our string. So I'm actually going to create a string, and I'm going to call it white spaces. And then inside here, I'm going to put like just a regular space. I can throw a tab inside of there, form feed, new lines, and so forth. All right, so there's the different white space that I want to delete from the front and the end of my string. Then what I can do is go the string and call for erase, and then go the string and find last not of, and what this is going to do is it's going to find the last instance of something in the string that isn't one of these things. So it's going to find the very last one that isn't one of those. And I can just go white spaces like this, and then we're going to do +1, and there we go. So we're going to erase everything up until we get to that point right there. And I'm going to come in and go the string like that, and the string like that. All right, so we got that all set up. Then what we're going to do? Well, then we're going to use find first not of in a very, very similar way. So we can just copy this guy right here and paste that in there. And then this is going to erase everything from 0 up to the string, and this is going to be find first not of. So there's, whoops, find first not of white spaces. And in this situation, we don't need the +1 on there. And then what we can do is go return and the new string. Okay, so pretty simple stuff. And of course, you could just use one of these if you wanted to get rid of, if you wanted to trim on the right, or this one to trim on the left. So there's 2 more functions you can go and create for homework if you'd like. Otherwise, I'm going to come up here and create my string. So I'm going to go string and just call it a string is equal to, and I'm going to put some space here, and then I'm going to say just some random words, and then put some more spaces there. And then what I want to do is get rid of that white space. So I'll go a string is going to be equal to, and I can call trim white spaces, and or white space I called it, and then throw in, whoops, trim white spaces. There we go, and throw a string into it, and then I can go standard and print that out. So like this. And then I could throw like a star inside of here or something just to show that these are, all the white spaces are gone. So let's get rid of that. A string and then throw, well, it doesn't matter if there's a new line there or not, but either way. All right, so I got that, and we can run it. And you can see that it got rid of the white space on the left as well as the white space on the right. Okay, so pretty useful stuff. And for the next one, we're going to do a problem once again. And what I want you to do is to figure out how to find all index matches. And I want you to take basically a string, and I want you to find all of the matches for individual words. And then I want you to store those indexes that matched into a vector and then return that vector. So you could pause your video and go and do that. Otherwise, I'm going to do it right now. You know what? I think I'm going to do exactly what I did before, where I'm going to do the main part for you, and then you have to make the code work. So what we're going to do in the main part here is I'm going to have a phrase is equal to, and it's going to be to be or not to be. All right, and we're going to put that inside of there, and then we're going to go and create a vector of ints, which are going to be all the matches that we are searching for. So we might as well just call it matches, and that's going to be equal to, and then this is going to be the actual function you're going to be creating. It's going to be called find substring matches, and you're going to pass inside of it the phrase, and then you're also going to pass inside of it the string that you are going to be searching for. So you're going to be searching for the phrase be in this string you pass inside, and then this is going to return a vector that is going to be full of all the indexes where it matched for that for the word be. And then you're going to just come in here and print these out. So I'm going to go I is equal to 0, and you're going to do that while I matches size and plus and increment that, and then this guy's going to print out all the matches that it had, which are going to be index numbers. So matches, there we go, and there we are. Okay, so I think you have enough information now. So your goal is to go and find substring matches. All right, so you can pause your video right now and go and give that a go. Well, this part's going to be pretty easy. The prototype part. Okay, it's going to return a vector, we know that, which is an integer, which you basically have all this information here. And it's going to be called find substring matches. It's going to receive a string that I'm going to call the string. And then it's also going to have another string, which is going to be our substring that we're going to be searching for. All right, so we got that all set up, and now we have to come down here and actually create our function. All right, so let's just paste that in there. And what are we going to need to do here? Well, we're going to have to create a vector, of course, which is going to be full of integers that we are going to, which are going to be the matching addresses. So I'm just going to call it matching indexes. And then after I create that, I need to check for matching a specific substring. So I'm just going to call this index is equal to, and I can just go the string and find. If you watched previous parts of this tutorial, you're going to know all about that. And there we are. And then after that, what we're going to do is just keep adding indexes until there are none left. And to do that, I can do while, and I can go index not equal to standard and string, and there is an pose again like we had covered previously. And then what we can do is just go matching indexes and of course push back, which I actually used in this tutorial. So there, throw that index on there. And then I can go index is equal to and call the string and find the next match that we might have. Index and increment that. And then after we have all those done, we can return our vector, which is going to contain all of our matching indexes. All right, so there we go, and we can save this, and if we run it, you can see that at index 3 and at index 16, we were able to locate the word B. All right, so pretty useful stuff, and now you should be able to go and use that to solve our next problem, which is going to be that I want you to create a function that is going to replace all substrings or all matching substrings in a string. So you can pause your video and go and give that a try. Or if you want a tip, we can go and put some information here inside of main. And this is basically going to be nice and short. I'm going to call a function called replace all substrings. It's going to receive a string, and that string is going to be to no or not to no, and it is going to replace the word no with the word B, and then it is going to print that out on the screen, of course, and with a new line at the end. All right, so there you go. That is the guy you need to work with, and of course with your solution you're going to need to use the function also find substring matches. All right, so what I'm going to do is you can either pause your video and do it, or I'm going to solve it right now. Okay, so like always, this is pretty simple. We are going to return a string, and the name of the function is replace all substrings, and it is of course going to receive a string that I'm going to call the string, and then it is going to get our substring. So again, substring, and then the new string that is going to be inside of it, and I might as well just call that new string. All right, so there we are, and we got our prototype all set up, and then we can just go and copy this and make this work down below. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to paste that inside of there and create the function. So what am I going to need here? Well, I'm going to need a vector that's going to contain all my matching indexes first. So why don't I just go and steal this guy right here? Oh, you know what? I deleted it. Whatever. I guess I have to type it out again. No big deal. All right, so I'm going to create a vector that's going to contain all of my matches, just like I did previously. So might as well just call this matches once again is equal to, and then it's going to be find. I might as well just copy this guy right here, and I have code completion turned off for your help so this stuff doesn't pop up all over the screen, but it makes my life a little bit harder. That's the reason why I had to do that. All right, so got string and substring is all that needs to go and get me all of the matches for the words that we're searching for. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if matches dot size and is not equal to 0. So I'm checking to see if I got a match or not. And then what I can do is get our size difference between our substring and the new string, because we're going to be replacing all those. But what's going to happen is as we change the first string, the index is going to move. So if we put a bigger word inside of there, the indexes are going to move. So that's going to cause some problems. So I need to pay attention to how much they're going to move. I'm going to call this length difference. I'm going to go new string size and minus substring dot size. And this is probably the hardest part of solving this problem, is to figure out, this. Then I'm going to go, I'm going to keep monitoring how many times we're going to cycle through our loop. I'm going to call this times loop because it's going to change by the index are going to move twice as much each time we go through our loop. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Then I'm going to go for auto index and matches. So for each of those matches that we have inside of there, I'm going to go the string and replace index plus, and then we're going to have times looped, times looped times the length difference. Okay, and then I can put our substring size, and then we can also put in our new string, which is going to replace that guy. I'm then going to be able to increment times looped, and got that set. And then after we go through all of those, what we'll be able to do is return our final string with everything updated. So, and if you're solving these problems along with me, and you think of shorter ways of doing things that I'm doing, please leave them in the comments. I appreciate it, and it'll help other people as well. So we're going to go in here and we're going to replace all locations of no with the word be. And let's run it, and you can see that it worked, to be or not to be. All right, so hopefully you guys got that. And if you didn't, no big deal. What I want to do now is show you some interesting character functions and then give you your homework. All right, so rather than you having to watch me come in here and type all these out, I thought I would just go ahead and do them ahead of time. So what we got here right here is if we run this, you're going to see that I created 3 different types of characters. I have here a Z, letter Z, here's a 3, and here is a space. You can see that there are some great functions built into C++ for checking whether something is a letter or a number. And that function is called isAllNum, and that's going to return, you can see right here, it returned a 1 back here, saying that indeed Z was a letter or a number. IsAlpha is a function that's going to allow us to check to see if something is a letter or not, also useful. IsUpper is going to tell us if something is uppercase. IsLower is going to tell if something is lowercase. Is it a digit or not? Is going to tell if it's a number or not. And isSpace is going to return either true or false based off of if something is indeed a space. So I just wanted to show you a couple other interesting character functions. And now I'm going to give you actual homework. What I want you to do between now and the next video is figure out how to create a Caesar Cipher. And here I'm going to do exactly as before. I'm going to create the main program part, and then it will be up to you to come in here and create everything else. So we're going to have a string that is going to be created, and it is going to be make me secret. And you are also going to go and pass that into a function called Caesar Cipher, and it's going to store the encrypted version of our string. And here's Caesar Cipher. It's going to receive our string, and then it's going to receive the number of characters we want to shift. And then you're going to also pass in true if it's going to be encrypting the string versus decrypting the string. All right. So this is going to say that we want to shift every single character over by 5. And I'm going to give you an example here. And what I mean by 5 is, let's say that you have an A and you want it to be shifted. That would be B, C, D, E, F. So every time you have an uppercase A, we're going to convert that into an uppercase F. All right, and we're going to continue doing that for every single one of our different whatever we want to encrypt. And then you're also going to be able to go and decrypted string. You're going to be able to call the same exact function. It's going to be called Caesar Cipher again, except in this situation, you're going to pass in the encrypted string. And let's just store it like that. You're going to also pass in the key for how much it needs to be shifted, except in this situation, you're going to pass in false because we're going to be decrypting and not encrypting. All right, and then after we have that all set up, what we're going to do is, whoop, don't forget to put the equal sign inside of here. And then finally, we're just going to print these both out. All right, and this is going to be encrypted and encrypted string, and throw in our new line, and then we're going to print out the decrypted version also on the screen. All right, so there you go, decrypted. So there you go. Hopefully you were able to solve some of those problems today, and hopefully between this video and the next, you will be able to solve our Caesar Cipher. All right, so thank you for joining me here today, and like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.